If everyone will take a seat, we can get started. I'd like to welcome you all to the 2013 Forum for the candidates running for the Montgomery Village Foundation Board of Directors. My name is Pamela Bort. I'm Chair of the Election Committee. I'm going to run over the rules for you very quickly before we start. Each candidate will be allotted 2 minutes for an opening statement. There will be no closing statements. For everyone who asks a question, the candidates will be limited to 1 minute for the responses to their questions. Sharon is going to be timing the responses. When you have 15 seconds left, she will lift up her little sign that says 15 seconds. And then at the end of the period, of the 1 minute period, she will lift the sign that says time. We would ask you to stop then, otherwise I'm going to have to interrupt you. To ensure that all audience members have an opportunity to ask a question, people will be limited to 1 question at a time. After everyone who wishes to do so asks their first question, I will ask Sharon if there are any mail-in questions to be addressed to the candidates. And she tells me there aren't any. There are not. Once everyone has gone through and asked their initial question, you will be invited to put forth a second question if you so wish. And we'll go on. We will finish at 8:30. We can finish before that if there are no further questions. Okay, one last thing is that the forum will be audio and video recorded, and the transcript will be published in the Village News and on the website. So, without further ado, we will start with Elena Peterson.
Thank you, Pamela. Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Elena Peterson, and I've been a Montgomery Village resident for a little over 24 years. I live in South Village, and I've been active on their board for approximately 20 years, having a capacity of either treasurer, board member, or currently I'm serving as a president. I've also been on the Montgomery Village Foundation Recreation Committee and the Long Range Strategic Planning Committee and the Vision 2030 Committee, because I was interested in finding out what we can do to make Montgomery Village a livable and sustainable place to live and work and play. I love the recreational facilities. I frequently walk around the lake. I'm also a member of FOWL, and so I have the geese and the egret and the herons are dear to my heart. Some of the things that I oppose is M83, and that is particularly close to my heart because South Village happens to be intersected by Mid-County Highway and Montgomery Village Avenue. So currently, of the 7 neighborhoods, we have 3 intersected by on one side of Mid-County and Montgomery Village Avenue. We have 2 neighborhoods, Center Stage and Walker's Choice, on the other side of Mid-County Highway, on the other side of Montgomery Village Avenue, and then we have 2 neighborhoods, the Hamptons and Grover's Forge. And so I'm strongly opposed to M83. Thank you.
Don?
Yes. Montgomery Village faces strategic challenges, some internal, some external. Internal challenges facing the village are self-imposed. I think we need to now clean up and recover from the effects of these internal challenges. For example, reinstating the 5-minute residence time, lightening up on the censorship in the MV News letters to the editor, elevating civility among MVF board members and especially staff in dealing with village residents, ensuring safety and security of village residents and their property, encouraging the pride of village residents in maintaining the aesthetic appearance of the community, scrap the 100-story parking garage at the professional center right behind the homes of the Courts of Whetstone, scrap the relocation of MVF offices from Apple Ridge Road to Montgomery Village Shopping Center. This election represents an opportunity to clean up lingering past issues in preparation for addressing the external challenges that await us from the state, county, and business development communities. Montgomery Village must be able to anticipate, avoid, withstand, and mitigate the adverse effects they might impose. Government affairs issues with the county and state include town sector zoning, Gaithersburg East Master Plan, M83 Mid-County, Goshen Road widening, web track development, and Lake Whetstone dredging. Business development issues involve the Nike site, golf course, professional center, shopping center, and Watkins Mill development. We need to promote an economic development environment for the community businesses that serve the residents of Montgomery Village. As a candidate for a position on the board, I'm well equipped and committed to attacking these challenges on behalf of village residents. You have a friend in me.
Thank you, Don.
First of all, thank you everyone for coming out tonight, and to those reading about and watching this video at home. And thank you to our moderator, Pamela Bort, the election committee, and the MVF staff who made tonight's event possible. My name is Scott Dyer. I'm running for re-election to the MVF Board of Directors. Been part of the following MVF committees: Communication, Recreation, and Election, including chair and moderator of the Candidates Forum in 2012. I also participated in Vision 2030. I live in East Village with my wife, Joy, and our 2-year-old son, Joseph, who is a third-generation village resident. My wife and I are both elected members of the East Village Homes Corporation Board of Directors. My professional background includes over 6 years with J.P. Morgan in client service and finance roles. My past work experience includes the federal government at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the state government at the Maryland Department of Transportation, and as a realtor with Long and Foster. I'm running for a second term on the MVF board because I believe Montgomery Village's best days aren't behind us, but still ahead of us. I want to ensure Montgomery Village remains a great place to live today, tomorrow, and for future generations. Looking back at my first term on the board, MVF is in the best financial shape of its almost 47-year history. The past 3 years saw a shift from planning for the next year's budget to looking at a 5-year plan. Notably, 2012 and 2013 saw no assessment increases, and only a designated user increase is expected in 2014. I ask for your vote and support for a second term to keep Montgomery Village moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Sharon?
Well, good evening, and thank you all for coming. My name is Sharon Cranford. I'm running for election to the MVF Board of Directors because I am very optimistic about the future of Montgomery Village, and I want to continue the progress that has been made over the past several years. Right now, village finances have been stabilized, facilities are being renovated, village recreation and leisure programs have been reinvigorated. I'm looking forward to implementation of the new Montgomery Village Marketing Plan. I am optimistic because we are located in the heart of Montgomery County with unparalleled employment and educational opportunities. We have a new library and a new high school, Gaithersburg High, coming online in 2014. These will add greatly to our quality of life here in the village. I have served 4 years on the MVF Audit Committee. I also served on long-range facility planning and the Vision 2030 committees. Both brought together a diverse group of residents to look closely at how we can make Montgomery Village a great place even better. Looking ahead, there will be challenges: a revision of the master plan, the sale of the Montgomery Village Golf Club. We must continue to work closely with state and local officials on issues of concern to us. M83, the Watkins Mill Road interchange at I-270, protection of Whiteman and Goshen roads, and the dredging of Lake Whetstone. Good things are happening here, and we need to keep the momentum going. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Sharon. We will now begin with the questions. If you are called upon, if you could come up to the podium and speak into the microphone? Who would like to go first? Dennis.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Barnes, 37-year resident of Montgomery Village. I do have one straightforward question here regarding the widening of Goshen Road. I'd like each of you to give me a yay or nay if you agree with it. The widening of Goshen Road, whether widening is widened or not, will be a challenge because that will start the runway from Clarksburg and Germantown with approximately 26,000 vehicles, according to the Montgomery County Department of Transportation, that will daily come through, starting up obviously for us, Whiteman, over to the Goshen, take a right on Goshen, all the way to Mid-County Highway, straight shot to Shady Grove Metro. If Goshen is widened, regardless of what happens with Whiteman, the pressure will come on from Germantown and from Clarksburg to widen Whiteman Road also, because there will be obviously the effort to get that traffic moving right through here. That road, those two roads will together bisect or the village, from the northern part of the village to the rest of the village. So I respectfully ask each of you to comment on this Goshen Road widening, which has been in the works at the Montgomery County Department of Transportation for many years. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Don, would you like to start?
Yes. Dennis, I've been opposed to the widening of Goshen Road, and when it first started coming up, I went out on my hands and knees and measured how wide that road really needed to be to actually accommodate some modest increase without a center strip, without bike paths and other kinds of widening things that will take property from some of our people that live along that. As far as the M83, I think we should do nothing. If we must do something, it should be the Route 355 route that they're looking at. I absolutely oppose option 4, which gets down into your neck of the woods of your question. So that's my position on widening of Goshen Road and the M83.
Thank you, Don. Scott?
Well, I support the MVF Transportation Plan's view on Whiteman Road because that has built the consensus of the community, and it's been something that we've been continuously working to try to refine the language. But personally, I'm not a supporter of rerouting other people's problems onto our doorstep, and unfortunately, when you take that much volume of traffic from Clarksburg, it's going to greatly impact not just Whiteman Road, but it's going to have an effect on all the surrounding roads there as Montgomery Village becomes a cut-through for what pretty much was a disaster in the planning of Clarksburg that never had public transportation, never had the proper roads. I opposed M83, that was brought up. I used to live in Christopher Court condominiums, so I know firsthand of the impact that would have occurred right next to there, the environmental impact, as well as just overall, it's not really benefiting the community.
Thank you, Scott. Sharon?
Okay, I happen to also oppose widening of Whiteman Road. I have supported in the past the 91-foot solution for widening Goshen Road. That was developed by our late colleague, Marty Cadle, who served for many years in the village and worked very hard and thoughtfully. I'm also opposed to M83. I've been opposed to M83 for, close to 30 years. I used to live in Woodland Hills, and we opposed it then. So that's where I stand.
Elena?
Well, I must agree with my fellow candidates. I am also opposed to the Whiteman-Goshen Road widening. I was very surprised because I'm on the mailing list for the Department of Transportation when it popped up one day as an alternate 4 modified, and I'd never been there before. And I've been to a number of meetings, and it never ceases to amaze me as to how they want to align and realign everything. Everyone has already heard my views on M83 because I happen to live in a neighborhood that's already being cut by Mid-County Highway. And I totally agree that Whiteman Road should not be widened, and I've been to Goshen Road hearings also.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Kraus?
Hi, my name is John Kraus. I live in the Williams Range. I was proudly on the visioning committee and put forth a few ideas that were fought. Actually, some candidates this evening have opposed. One was relocation of the foundation office to the village center, which seemed to gain a lot of support through the visioning committee, not necessarily a foregone conclusion, but an idea to do a mixed-use place. Also fought about the four-story parking garage, which wasn't really just a freestanding parking garage, but integrated into a mixed-use development for the professional center. So I opposed that. I thought the visioning was a very positive for the village. It wasn't fought, it was a support, it was a looking forward in a positive manner, not in a negative manner. And I'd like the candidates just to address that. I know 3 of them worked actively on the visioning committee and 1 didn't. So I'd like to hear about it. Thank you.
Scott?
Well, I appreciate Mr. Kraus's question. I certainly support Vision 2030. I saw from start to finish coming together of the entire village. You had representatives across the village. You had members of the community, members of the business community coming together. And it was for an opportunity to dream again. It took us back to the days when Kettler first dreamed of Montgomery Village. What could be? That was what we were trying to do with Vision 2030, was look at the village, what could be moving forward as we go towards the Gaithersburg East Master Plan process. This was a chance to get ahead of the process for us to not be in a position of saying that's not what we want, but here's what we want. And consensus across the board was it was a great success. There's some misinformation that's certainly being put out there about what was proposed in that plan, but that plan is out there on the website. Please read it, and please, great job by the committee.
Sharon?
I was an active member of the Vision 2030 committee, and it brought together a diverse group of residents, and there was a lot of very positive energy around it. We looked at kicked around a lot of different ideas. The key parcels that are involved are not owned by MVF. They are privately held. However, with an upcoming revision to the master plan, the owners are likely looking for the opportunity to redevelop. And we've given them some ideas of things that residents of the community are interested in seeing. For example, upgrading the retail at the village center. We have been told that it may require us to increase our density slightly if we want the kinds of retail services that we're looking for. I think that's...
Thank you, Sharon. Elena?
Okay. Well, I also was a very active member of the 2030 Vision Committee, and I met a lot of interesting people with a lot of excellent ideas. And I felt very privileged to be part of that committee. One of the things that I came to realize talking or listening to some of the experts that were brought in to work with us on this was, the demographics, what can support things, and a lot of mixed-use development is what is the future and may have to be the future of even Montgomery Village. And although, as Sharon said, these parcels are not owned by the village, us taking an active role and asking our citizens what they envisioned is help, and us formulating that in the 2030 plan is going to help the town sector rewrite that's coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Don?
Yes, well, I'm sure John asked this question because of my opening comments. I stand behind it, even if I stand alone. I'm against the four-story parking garage at the professional center that's right behind the Whetstone, courts of Whetstone. People aren't going to want to see four-story parking garage looming up in their backyard there. It changes the tone. I'm opposed to the movement and relocation of the MVF offices to the Montgomery Village Shopping Center purely on cost. What's the point? How much does it cost? It seems foolish. Let's pull our horns in a little bit and do things that are going to add value, not be a replacement in a nifty location, so it is thought. I do think that the 2030 committee has done certain things that are of interest, and I would point to the golf course as one place where some of those ideas might be worthy of being carried forward, but not the four-story garage and not the relocation of the MVF offices.
Thank you, Don. Could I have another question, please? Rich.
Well, my concern is about residents that have computers and those that don't, and getting information to them. Now, I want to read something out of standards of conduct here. Each board member or officer shall act impartially and not give preferential treatment to any one group, organization, business, or individual. The Village News is available to everybody, people with computers, without computers. There is some concern about Village News proposal to provide additional info on online sites such as Facebook, Twitter. These sites are not available to residents, of course, without computers. Also, there's concern about control of info on these online sites, because once you put information on there, you've lost control at that point. And also the privacy of information on there. I can give many examples of lawsuits and things like that, or hoaxes, or whatever you want about online sites. So my question is, how would you handle this?
Thank you, Rich. Sharon, would you like to start?
Okay. Well, Rich, I love my newspapers, and I love my Village News, and I read paper newspapers every day. Unfortunately, the world is changing, and many people prefer to get their information on their smartphones or online, their home computers. And I think that we can fairly accommodate everyone by providing information in various ways so that we are meeting the preferences of our residents. For those who want paper, there's the Village News. For those who want to go online, the Village News is online. You can get copies of the executive packets mailed to you. So I think there's been a pretty good sensitivity to making information available to residents in various ways so that it is given to them at the way that they want to receive it. Thank you.
Elena?
Okay. I am also a newspaper reader, and I appreciate the fact that the Montgomery Village has a website. I have looked at when there are meetings. I have read the executive packet. I have read the Montgomery Village Board packet, and I found it particularly interesting when I was working on the 2030 committee, in that when we wanted to capture village input, we put a banner out there that people could use a drop-down menu and forward ideas to the 2030 committee so that they could incorporate them in the planning. Not everybody can always get to a meeting during the day or sometimes at night based on family concerns. So some of it is very good.
Don?
Yes, I appreciate Rich's question. I think it reflects just one of the collection of things that is eroding the democracy in Montgomery Village. I think for certain, all information that's allowed out there should be available to everybody on an equal basis. I once suggested that we have a kiosk up at the foundation offices for people to come in, and someone that could help them and navigate the thing and get the information they need, including printer support. Now, I'm not a Luddite myself. I use YouTube. I post things of community interest. of professional interest and so forth. In fact, you can go on YouTube and put in there "Democracy Lost in Montgomery Village," and you'll see my position on this very subject.
Thank you, Don. Scott?
Well, as a member of the Communications Committee, as a part of the new branding initiative, as part of that, we took our first step into social media, a place where many other communities already have been for quite some time. The goal was never to limit availability of information, it was actually to increase the reach. The Village paper is still very popular. I read it every other week when it comes. But I visit the website, I visit our Facebook page, Twitter. You know, it's the idea that we're able to inform residents who don't read the paper, or we inform residents who do read the paper. We inform, you know, not just the residents, but also visitors to our community, prospective residents, prospective businesses that may want to come to the village. It's part of defining what the village is, what's going on here. So I will say that we certainly, there's been considerations, my time's up.
May I have another question? Jane?
I'm looking here at the Articles of Incorporation, which are the principal document of the village that supersedes all the others. Purpose of this corporation is to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the community of Montgomery Village, Maryland, etc. And sometimes I don't think that this is done. A good example was when there was a move to change all the certain gazebos in the village, South Valley Park, a couple years ago, and this came only from the staff. In fact, when I go to all the meetings and get the packets, and one of the board members there didn't even know about it and said, "Why?" You know, and it had been staff people. It said there the staff has selected this style, etc. So I find there's some problems just including every board member in communication. It's the whole board is in charge of the staff, not just one board member, two board members. And anyway, I asked one of the board members subsequently, and they said, "Hey, we pay for this high-priced staff. Why do we need the residents' opinion?" I find that very non-communicative and not in accordance with the bylaws and the Articles of Incorporation. How would you make sure that the community is informed on things like this that would really change the character of a major park, and that all the board knows what's going on? And according to state law, the whole board is involved in these decisions, not just one or two people.
Thank you, Jane. Elena?
Okay. Well, I happen to maybe take a different viewpoint on your making issues available, because I was on the Recreation Committee, or I am on the Recreation Committee, and I was totally aware of the rehabilitation of the South Valley Pavilion, the band shell. I sat in on a meeting on the changing some of the gazebos and asked some specific questions about what we're doing, but some of that was just a maintenance issue. If it's a certain maintenance issue, we're not tearing it down and relocating. I think that we should let staff do what they need to be doing.
This was not maintenance, this is redesign.
Jane? Okay, thank you. Don?
Yes, well, on an issue like this, and I think it's a good issue to bring up, because it's, do we have processes and practices that are in place and are followed? I would ask the Montgomery Village Executive Vice President to review the practices and policies around this type of thing with specifics such as the one you mentioned and others if they are brought forward, and review them with respect to the adequacy of our process and practices and the staff training necessary to fully carry them out in the best possible way.
Scott?
I actually recall when this issue about the gazebos came up, and I was actually one of the voices that asked for it to go to the Recreation Committee for further discussion at the time. And I was a part of the Recreation Committee there, and we did find a reasonable compromise in terms of how to sell that issue. When issues have come up that found that there's a need for more discussion, I've certainly been a voice to say, let's discuss it further. And it's not always going to be solved at that meeting there. We certainly, from the MVF perspective, put out the information. At the same time that I'm receiving my pack as a board member, that pack is available to the public. So I'm often getting feedback from residents as I'm looking through the packet. They're looking through the packet as well. And I value that feedback, and I always will. But I'll say that we certainly seek to work together with the community and the staff to find reasonable solutions.
Sharon?
Well, I think transparency and accountability are very important goals or objectives to reach for. And I think that over the last several years, there has been an increased transparency in the operations of the foundation and increased accountability. It comes from taking the committees very seriously, taking the views of residents seriously, and developing consensus views on how to handle issues as they come up. I would expect as a member of the board, if I'm elected, to continue to support that.
Thank you, Sharon. Jane, thank you for a good question. If you would take your seat, we'll see if there's any other initial questions. Kathy?
I'm Kathy Huffnagel, and I've lived in Montgomery Village for 40 years now, and I'm very excited to live here still, and I just really want to make sure that the candidates that we choose are the right candidates. So I have a specific question for you, Mr. O'Neill, and then for all the other candidates to please respond as well. What would you do if you were on the board and an issue arose in a way, and something that you strongly disagreed with? For example, if you had been on the board when the majority decided to support building the restrooms and the concession stand in the park, would you still have gone to the Board of Public Works to oppose it, and why? And it's the same question for really all the other candidates. What would you do if you were elected to the board and you strongly disagreed with something? How would you handle it?
Okay, Kathy, I guess I'm going to go first if
Yes,
it's
you are.
directed at me.
And you're actually up.
Oh, well, that's good. What a happenstance. I'm a 44-year resident too, so we need to stick together. I believe that board members must support the decisions of the board, but not before they've made themselves understood and clear. As far as the Board of Public Works appearance that I made, it was simply as a resident. And if you think that was an easy thing to do, it takes a certain amount of intestinal fortitude to see an issue through the mechanisms here with the residence time and so forth, and then actually appear in Annapolis before the governor of the state and make a case, a good case, a very compelling case. Of course, the fix was in. This is Democratic land. The fix is always in Baltimore and in Maryland. and I didn't expect to win, but I expected to be heard, and that's what happened.
Thank you, Don. Scott?
I thought it was interesting what Don O'Neill just mentioned about supporting the consensus of the board, not word for word what you just said, but as a board member, we disagree on a number of issues, but we make a vote, and the majority is the opinion that goes forward. We don't become, from the perspective of an armchair quarterback the next day complaining about it. There's a lot of important decisions that affect the village there, and we debate these issues. We ask questions. It's easy to say after complain about these issues, but I find it interesting what Mr. O'Neill will do if he is elected there, because he seems to oppose a great number of things.
I just told you I would support the board.
I certainly hope you will.
Well, I just told you I would.
Thank you.
Sharon?
Yes, I believe that it is important, given the issues that we have coming before us, that we fully debate, say, the revision of the master plan. There will be issues coming up. But when the chips are down, when we have finished the discussion, we have to support the board's majority. And we have to do this because we need to speak as a strong, unified community. If we are going to work with officials from state and local government as we go forward, we are simply going to have a better result, I believe, if we work together and come out with a unified position.
Thank you, Sharon. Elena?
Okay. Well, I personally have always worked for what I felt was the betterment of every resident that I represented. And I freely anticipate a good exchange of ideas. I may not agree with everyone, but once we go for a vote and make a decision, I am fully supportive of that. And I do that with my board, and I will do that with the Montgomery Village Foundation Board.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
These people are supposed to sit down after they ask the question.
Does anyone else have a question, please? Are there any other people who have not asked a question, one question? Okay, we will now ask people who have already asked questions to please, just if they would like to ask a second question. And Jane, you waved your hand at me, so I know that you do. But Jane, as Don reminded me, when you finish asking your question, would you retake your seat while the... Thank you.
We have had a coexistence with wildlife policy in the village for years, which we worked on very hard, and we have things to ameliorate problems with the wildlife, like cleaning walks, wiring trees against beavers. We even have a policy of fencing for deer that is in line with the architectural control. Would you support this policy of coexistence with wildlife?
Thank you, Jane. Scott, you're up.
As I mentioned back in 2010 when I ran, I will continue to support the coexistence with wildlife. I certainly want to commend yourself and others who have always been a voice for the protection of the wildlife in the village, as well as informing us on the various types of wildlife. I remember a brochure that you provided the board that you had put together there, and it was fascinating to know just how many different species live in the village. I will say that we have a good number of dedicated members of the community, whether it be with FOWL, the Committee on the Environment, that provide a great service, as well as a great source of information for the board in making decisions that affect the environment. So I definitely will continue to listen to that guidance and encourage others to become involved as well.
Sharon?
As a longtime member of Friends of Whetstone Lake, also known as FOWL, and president of FOWL in 2010, yes, I will support coexistence with our wildlife.
Elena?
Well, I'm going to parrot Sharon, since I am a member of FOWL, and I was vice president the year she was president, but I fully support the coexistence policy that Montgomery Village has with wildlife.
Don?
I think it would be wonderful if we actually had such a policy of coexistence. I fully agree with Jane's raising that concern. It was a mistake, an egregious mistake, when John Driscoll at a Montgomery Village Foundation Executive Board meeting said that the South Valley is for recreation, not environment, not an environmental retreat. And I think that we need to reinstate the careful and sensitive balance between those two competing objectives.
Thank you, Don. Are there any other questions? Dennis?
Thank you. The second question involves the Montgomery Village 2030 plan, 60-page document. I perused it earlier today, and two situations came up. I do need a clarification I would appreciate. One, it mentions the document, construction of business and residential units at the intersection of Montgomery Village Avenue and Stedwick Road, and coming out of the Whetstone HOA into that situation, which is a challenge even this evening. That does raise an issue in my mind, whether the opinion of each of you on something like that. I know it's off in the 2030 future, but there is that prospect of congestion, so I would appreciate an opinion on that. But related to that is the golf course, the parking lot. Again, the document refers to a mix of housing, mixed residential and business on that parking lot. And particularly, I get the impression the possibility of a Section 8 housing, affordable housing in that area. I would like to have that clarified, because in that immediate area, there are a number of HOAs, which I understand is a significant number of Section 8 housing. The village itself should be commendable for the Section 8 housing. We've met our responsibilities, I think. So those two issues did raise this question in my mind as I went through the document. I would appreciate your response to each one. Thank you.
Sharon?
Oh, I get to go first. Okay. Let's see. Well, with respect to the Village Center, I think you're discussing that. We had at the Vision 2030 meeting, we had several meetings, and we did have developers come in, and they explained to us that if we want the type of retail, the enhanced retail that we want, mixed-use development is the way to go. They're talking offices, condominiums, retail, and perhaps some percentage might involve Section 8. It depends on how it's structured. In terms of congestion, we're going to get congestion from anything that we do, but we have to decide what it is that we want most. Do we want enhanced retail? I'd like to be able to walk up to Starbucks, or are we going to just continue on as we are? And so there are going to be trade-offs. There are going to be trade-offs. Same with the parking lot at the golf course. Trade-offs.
Elena?
Well, I guess my answer is going to be very similar to Sharon, since we were both on the same committee. But yes, what we were talking about with Stedwick Road was looking at redesigning, if we had a chance to do it, so that it would be more inviting, and that view from the top of the hill where the village center is now, that you encompass as you come around Montgomery Village Avenue from Lake Whetstone. And we were looking at how to design roads through that and how to enhance it. And yes, we did look at maybe the upper parking lot of the golf course, where it would be feasible, if we could keep the golf course, of maybe doing a trade-off and having some housing there, always with the intent of the 2030 committee that most village residents would like to keep the golf course. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Don?
Yes. In looking at the Montgomery Village Avenue side of this and then the golf course side, John Krause and others were the architects for drawing all these very interesting possibilities. And I think that was a bridge too far. It looked too much like a little mini city. I don't think that's what I want. I don't think that that's what we need. Changes the whole tone and tenor of Montgomery Village right at the heart of it. I want the shopping, yes, but we don't need all this residential and elegant townhouse business. On the golf course, I think we have to sort of have a blank slate because there's a new buyer. I trust Bob Hydorn and his staff to work with them and really come up with the best possible solution. And if that involves something on the parking lot and so forth, well then, I trust their judgment in arranging that. So I don't want to make a clear statement on what should be there, what shouldn't be there, and whether the 2030 plan is adequate or not. I think we should look at it with fresh eyes.
Thank you, Don. Scott?
I think part of the confusion about 2030 is that they were concepts. They weren't set in stone, they were concepts. It was looking at what could be done and trying to find a balance of what we would find acceptable, because ultimately we don't own those sites. We have the ability to affect the zoning, but that's the extent of it. We were working with the business owners there to say, here's what we would like to see. I will say that one of the things that, above all, that I've heard from residents is we want a town center. The whole original concept of the village was a central gathering place, was why they put the mall there. It was the whole idea that was a gathering place for the residents. Again, we want that. And, you have to increase density in that area to bring in retailers that we want. And I will say that we're looking, certainly it was a good thing we worked on the golf course concept because that is here now and we need to make decisions with the new owner.
Thank you. Next question. It's going to be the lady behind Rich and then you, Rich.
Hi, my name is Linda Moore. I live in Montgomery Village, and I have been for the past 11 years. Love my community. The new marketing talks about flourish, and that kind of means something different to each of us probably as we think about our community and what that means to us. Could each of you say what that means to you and to share the opportunity, the strength, whatever weaknesses or threats that we might have to actually attaining that goal as you see it?
Thank you. Elena? Thank you. Okay. Well, to me, flourish means keeping the village vibrant, making it a safe and happy place to live, to play, to work, to raise children, to raise grandchildren, to have the amenities that a multi-generational family, because right now the village is multi-generational, from the grandparents down to grandkids, that everybody wants to be here. And as our community ages, we are faced with more difficult challenges, how to spread those dollars further, how to encourage people in a very, very diverse community to step up and take care of their house. And that's what flourishing means to me.
Don?
Flourish. Our president of the Montgomery Village Foundation stumbled over the very spelling of our brand. If you can't spell it, you can't sell it. Now, I think that flourish is more suitable for Downton Abbey than it is for Montgomery Village. Here, it needs to be something like, it takes a village, something that's understandable, practical, and everybody understands.
Thank you, Don. Scott?
Well, I was on the communications committee when we came up with flourish, and as I remember, the synonym was to prosper. And that's certainly all the hard work of the community, the board, the staff, is to ensure that we all prosper, that we're seeking a better tomorrow. And, I was thinking about different answers, and I was thinking about the idea that it's actually, if you look at it, it's the generation of our kids coming back and buying homes here because it's still a great place to live, and future generations choosing to live here. That's ultimately, we're showing through that marketing there what's great about Montgomery Village, and it's a avenue to basically continue to show all the improvements that we're planning each year for the village. So I'm certainly a supporter of Flourish. It's unique, and it's certainly been the buzzword against a number of other communities that don't have such a great marketing plan.
Sharon?
Well, at one time, when I was working on the Vision 2030 committee, we had the opportunity to look at some of the early publications from the village. And at the time, when the village first started, we were Kentlands, Lakelands, and Clarksburg all rolled into one. We were fabulous. We were cutting edge. And then we rested on our laurels for about 20-odd years and didn't do very much. And now we're coming back, and I think we are flourishing. I see it in the reinvigoration of our leisure and recreation programs. I see it with the Montgomery Village Farmers Market. I see it with the financial stability that we've got. I see a lot happening here that makes me very optimistic about the future of Montgomery Village.
Thank you. I haven't forgotten you, Rich, but we've got another person asking their first question. Alice?
I have a comment. My name is Alice Claiborne. I was under the impression that this was a candidates forum where individuals could ask questions and receive answers from the people who were sitting at the front table. I'm sitting really far from my husband tonight because the last time I dared to stand up and ask my own question, I was accused of being a mouthpiece for my husband. I feel that it's important to put in the record that this is supposed to be a question and answer period, not a time for individuals at the front table to take cheap shots at people who are sitting in the audience. I request that Mr. O'Neill withdraw his statement.
Thank you, Alice.
Did I hear a question?
I believe that
Would you restate the question?
Ms. Hyden requested that you withdraw the statement you made regarding her husband's spelling of the word flourish.
No, because you can go on patch.com and see what transpired. Yes, that was a little bit of a needle. I give Bob a lot of credit for a lot of things. Bob knows that there are pluses and minuses. Well, that's one of the minuses. Sorry, Alice.
I don't think you are, sir.
Well, Rich?
Recently, there have been some issues between the board and committees, some strained relationships, especially I think with the TDPF and Committee on the Environment. At one time, there was an attempt to dismantle the TDPF and Committee on the Environment, and in favor of providing one-stop shopping for developers. And we had a big fight over that, and we got a lot of people out to defend the committees. But there's other things that happened after that, like there's a reduction of residence time from 5 to 3 minutes. There's an attempt to restrict resident input in the village news. Recently, there has been some environmental issues that have bypassed the Committee on the Environment. One is it's a stormwater issue in DeSimon Park. Before that, there was another one in Lake Marion. Now, the staff will say, these are maintenance issues. But in the past, these things always went to the Committee on the Environment because they involve stormwater, which is the purview of the Committee on the Environment. So my question is, how would you make the relationship better between the board and committees?
I think the board and the committees have been structured in a reasonable way at the structural level. That is, assignments are given to committees. Committees seem reasonably well structured to do the things of interest to the community. I think that sometimes it might break down in the sense of we have a certain amount of oversight and maybe control from the board in the conduct of a committee's activities. I think committees should get an assignment clearly stated, framed properly, and away they go, and they come back with something that the board can react to, like or dislike, and perhaps it gets sent back to the committee again. But I think they should have a degree of independence and be able to initiate fresh thoughts on their own for full consideration from the board, where civility should be the only rule of construction in that interaction.
Scott?
The committees are in place to advise the board, and they're made up of members of the community that have expertise on the subject matter. Committee on the Environment. That information is provided to the board members. They're at every meeting in our packets from the minutes of those meetings and the advice given there. I certainly read it. I certainly appreciate it. I think when it comes down to improving the relationship, it's a couple of things. We certainly need to increase participation on these committees. There's certainly a number of the committees that have very few members. There's other committees that have a lot of members there, but there are certainly other members of the community that have expertise that we'd love to have participate. About the reduced residence time at the meetings, that's a 6-month trial period to see how that goes. I say from my perspective, I have seen residents that there were so many residents speaking, they didn't have an opportunity to speak. So was trying to balance to ensure everyone had an opportunity.
Thank you. Sharon?
I'm a member of the MVF Audit Committee, and I can tell you that we worked very cooperatively with the staff and our board liaison. We have guidelines, and we understand what we are to, and we have benchmarks. There are things that we are to accomplish each time that we meet. And we have opportunity for residence time at every meeting. I mean, I guess I have not had any problem with the sense that the community did not have an opportunity to provide input.
Elena? Okay. Having worked on the Recreation Committee, I think that everything that happens in the Recreation Committee does go forward to Montgomery Village Foundation. I'm concerned about what you're saying about Ed DeSimon Park, because it had come to the Recreation Committee as a drainage issue, a ponding of water, and that it had to be regraded. I didn't consider it at the time, nor do I know enough about it now that it would have been anything that goes to the Environmental Committee. But I do know the Recreation Committee was fully aware of it because we went out and looked at it. So I think that committees are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Thank you, Elena. Are there any other questions? This lady.
Top 2 issues or priority issues that you, as members of the board, should you become that, in terms of the effect of the Watkins Mill exchange and the effect on the village?
Thank you. Scott?
Well, just a quick point of clarification. Do you want it specifically on issues around the Watkins Mill interchange, or is this overall top 2 issues?
Effect on the village.
Okay.
Relative to the Watkins Mill exchange.
Sure.
Transportation.
Well, I will say we're still at a holding point of when that interchange is actually going to be built. A lot of those great ideas put forth to improve transportation for the community over at Watkins Mill Extended, they're But I will say that it certainly would help when we're trying to come and go from the village down Montgomery Village Avenue. It would cut some of the congestion down at that choke point. But I'll say that all these different transportation plans that coincide with that, like Corridor Cities Transit Way, the Bus Rapid Transit, they all seem to be passing the village by. So I'll say that it seems that a lot of these plans went into place, not really looking how the impact would be on the village when they're put in, because they were on the basis of approving the development for some of the new communities that are connected to that.
Sharon?
One of the things I'm concerned about with Watkins Mill Road, the interchange, is the increased traffic that we may have on Watkins Mill Road. As you know, there are 4 schools on Watkins Mill Road, and our children walk to the schools. So we're going to have to be very, very careful. I think that those are going to be 2 issues that we will have to look closely at. One is increased traffic, and 2, how do we care for our children and protect them.
Elena?
Okay. Well, I am concerned about Watkins Mill and the interchange. I agree with Sharon that there are 4 schools there, and I used to be known on my street to anybody who missed the early morning school bus going to Watkins Mill. They could knock on my door and I'd make sure that they got to school. And so that's going to be an issue. And the interchange bothers me because you look at Watkins Mill from one end to the other, it's 118. It just makes a big curve. And they're going to have 2 interchanges. They've already got one up in Germantown. We're going to have one more down here. And I think it's going to be a very hard challenge for the village, working with our elected officials or whatever those powers to be, to make sure that our concerns for our children are front row and center in their minds.
Don?
It's my understanding that the volume of traffic will increase by a factor of 3 or 4 times. With such an increase, the effects are unpredictable. You put that together with the potential for Route 355 being perhaps the M83 preferred route, and you get chaos in terms of a planner's nightmare. What's really going to happen? I echo and support, of course, the concern of safety as the foremost idea with those 4 schools along there. I think that there is a factor here of the traffic that's coming in and its effect it would have on attracting Montgomery Village shopping of the kind we want in terms of the economic attraction to those businesses that would want to build here if they thought they had enough demand for their service.
Thank you. John, do you want to ask your question? You're withdrawing your question? Okay.
I'm going to defend myself to my wife not here by a second.
Are there any other questions? Reg?
Yeah. One more. This is an easy one.
Easier is good.
How do you feel about renaming the Gaithersburg East Master Plan to Montgomery Village and Vicinity Master Plan? Also, the Gaithersburg Library having our name on it, Gaithersburg Montgomery Village Library.
Good question, Rich. Okay. Sharon?
Well, I wouldn't object to either one. I don't think that we have necessarily a dog in that fight. I don't know that we have the power to, we can make the request, but I don't think we have the power to rename things. So I'm just going to be excited having a new library. I'm really looking forward to it.
Elena?
I don't have too much of a comment on Gaithersburg East Master Plan. I'm more interested in the town center rewrite, personally. And my thoughts on the library is I wish it would hurry up and be finished because I'm getting tired of going up to Germantown. Thank you.
Don?
Well, I'm glad this question came up, Rich, because I've wanted to say something about our relationship with the city of Gaithersburg and Sid Katz. And I know, Bob, you were pals of him going back many years. And it seems to me we ought to have a better or a more complete or a visible and transparent, productive, collaborative relationship between us. This would provide some of that opportunity. How do we name things? I've always thought the library should have been Montgomery Village, but yes, it's on the very edge, so, we lose out there. But with the right kind of leverage, with the right kind of cooperation with Sid Katz, maybe things like that would be possible. Maybe Gaithersburg / Montgomery Village, humma. I think that would be something that we should actually pursue. And there'd be many other common interests as these new planning ideas come up to collaborate with the city of Gaithersburg, so they can't divide and conquer us.
Scott?
I know that certainly those ideas have been mentioned by a number of members of the community, but I'll say that it's just a name. It doesn't change the fact that we're actually very well ahead in the process, ready for the master plan process, whether it's called Gaithersburg East or whatever. I'll say about the library, excited that the library is coming together finally. But I'll say that I'm more excited about the idea of being able to see a town center finally built in the village and worry about the naming of something on our community there than renaming the library Montgomery Village. There, quite frankly, we could have had a library in the town center there had that come together sooner. So my focus is within the village. We have a great relationship with Gaithersburg, and we'll continue to.
Dennis?
This will be pretty quick. Since my move from North Village to the center of the village, I've become more and more aware of some of the security challenges there in the commercial area, especially incidents that make the newspaper and obviously ours and the Gazette. I'm wondering if we can somehow ramp up with the sixth district better enforcement. I know that they have, I know that from a meeting we went to last year at Watkins Mill High School, and the police chief was there. He's ramping up, bringing in more police officers on board, but meanwhile, he's losing, obviously, those who are retired. I don't know if they'll ever catch up in meeting their structural needs. So I guess my question is, what can be done perhaps to enhance security in central and the commercial areas, and perhaps even utilizing our own Montgomery Village protective private security to address that situation? Thank you.
Elena?
Well, I don't think we're going to have a whole lot of leverage on getting a whole lot more police officers. It takes a certain amount of time to get them trained and certified, and we're at the whims of the county. I mean, we can't hire them ourselves. I think neighborhood watch groups are one answer. I've been to security meetings with Officer Zimmerman and with former Diane Tillery, and I think neighborhood watches and private security firms and just being aware on an individual basis will help us. Another thing is that we're not alone. We are not an isolated pocket of things happening. And I think our concerns are the same in Georgetown, Bethesda, Wheaton, everywhere.
Don?
This came up in the nominating committee session a week ago. I think that the strength that Montgomery Village has isn't in offering protection to its residents, but it might be in having a certain community outreach where we could sponsor after-school programs and target communities that may benefit from this to our advantage with respect to crime downstream. And I'm thinking here about math and English, kind of study hall things, other kind of sponsored activities for residents of the village that would be showing people in those areas, you know, there is another way to do things and another way of thinking.
Scott?
Well, I agree with the idea that crime is everywhere, and we are taking a very proactive approach, both in meeting with the commercial owners, I'll say the Rich Shopping Center. I know that they've increased security patrols. But, you know, it's really not one single approach to this. Say, as a member of the East Village Board, you know, we're looking at whether private security makes sense, but we also obtained a state grant to improve street lighting in areas that really needed it. The one thing I could say that residents need to do is call the police when you see something. That's the one thing that the county police have been reminding again and again, that they base their patrols and their manpower there where the most calls are made there. So if you see something, call non-emergency police. If it's urgent, call 911. But together, we're going to work together towards solutions.
Sharon? Public safety is an issue area that I've worked on for several years. I worked with several of my neighbors in getting a neighborhood watch going in our community. It has worked very well over the last 5 years. It has brought us together as a community. It has helped us be more aware of what's going on around, know our neighbors, and report in suspicious activity. I think it was the way to go for our community. Other communities have chosen to go with private security patrols, and for a time we did have that in Whetstone, and then we decided, no, we try neighborhood watch. I think each community is going to have to decide for itself what it would like to do. I know that for a very long time we have worked with RIT and other commercial areas to help them with security issues. So overall, I think Montgomery Village has been very proactive, but we need to continue.
Are there any more questions? Well, in that case, we'll be finishing up about 15 minutes early. Want to thank you all for coming, for asking good questions and listening to the candidates' responses. I would encourage you all to take this opportunity to speak with them, or if tonight is inconvenient, there will be a meet and greet the candidates prior to the board meeting on Thursday night. I believe the meet and greet begins at 6:30? 7 o'clock for half an hour before the board meeting, which begins at 7:30. So thank you all, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Can you read this and take it away from me?